Hey guys, I'm going to give you a second to jump on, but I'm going to jump right into this one. Let me see if I can re-angle that a little bit. I'm going to jump right into this one for the most part because I only have a few minutes, but this is a topic that has been on my heart, and then I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday that is struggling with this, and I wanted to jump on and give you 5 tips or things that you can do. I don't know if I like the word tips for this type of topic, but if you feel like you are feeling a little overwhelmed and uncertain, and there's just been so much change, and there's just that, if you're still in a state, and I don't mean still in a bad way, but if you find yourself in a state of, it almost feels chaotic because so much has changed at one time, right? And a lot of that is happening for many of us. Some of us have more extreme things going on that no one else would know about if they're not in your immediate circle. And then on a societal level, we have things like the, change of the things that we've been talking about for months. I don't need to remind you guys, right? The COVID, the anger, all the things on social media that is ugly right now, our kids not being able to go back to school. So those we're all sharing on a societal level. We've got people that are busier than ever, right? Teachers included. I can't even imagine teachers. I'm looking at a restaurant next to us, like they're working 10 times harder than they ever did for the same thing, like same job, like they didn't sign up for it either, right? So a lot of people are in this state of uncertainty and this state of fear, anxiety, overwhelm, and specifically someone that I love and adore, I spoke with yesterday, and they're managing a season of a lot of what we're all dealing with on a societal level, and then other things are just adding to it. And one of the things that came up that is not unique to this person, I've heard it before, you guys know, and I actually walked in, and this is what made me think, like, I've got to do this video. We're closing the physical location. It's closed for all intents and purposes last weekend, just getting every last little things out. And I walked in, and yes, I did have that pit of the stomach feeling, like just a sadness. It's a grief. It's letting go, right? I have worked for this business, or I've worked hard to be able to build this business and this community and this tribe for the last, over a decade. We started out at the park, like so many things, and that's not the point. But the question that came up is, but the next step, because I've gotten on here and I've said with such certainty, like, I know that the best is yet to come. And that's where I want to make sure that we reiterate, when you see somebody in a certain, and you've heard it in terms before in the past of like when someone is successful, you don't see what they have done to get through that, right? Or to get to that point. So you can't judge your now to their now, right? Because 2 totally different seasons. And even when you see someone that you perceive to be successful, and usually we think of success as, for me, I think of success in many different ways, and that's what I'm going to get to. But most people think of success of like some sort of achievement or stature or money or financial or a business or what have you, or physical result, those types of things. But so we think that, and that's usually what we struggle to compare with a lot of people, right? And that's where you hear the analogy of when you see somebody that's up here, don't compare their up here, or I should say here, because I think it's a journey. I don't think anyone's above anybody, but if they're here in their journey and you're just right here, don't compare your here to their here, because you don't know what they went through to get to there, right? The same holds true when you look at somebody that you perceive to be strong mentally and emotionally, right? It's not that they don't, it's just that they've had more time in between, more circumstances, more opportunities to build that inner strength, right? And so this is one of the things that I am thankful that we get to focus on and coach more about prospectively and get more intentional and methodical about it. One of the things that I want to encourage you to do when you feel like you are so overwhelmed. So my point is, I lost my train of thought for just a second, but my point is I know that some people might not everybody, but there are a few people that maybe look at it and go, Rebecca, like, you are closing down a business after 10 years and you're starting this new thing, and you appear to be so confident and so strong and so like energized about it, and all of that is true. That does not mean that I don't have moments of like when I walked in, I'm like, aw, I do. It's a very big awe, but this is what has gotten me to, like, even if it were a few years ago, I would have been much more emotionally weighed down. But the point is that I have done the work, the internal work, the most important work you could ever do for yourself and for those that you love and for your greatest purpose is to do the internal work to create a stronger foundation so that you can get to the point where you're continually working on how to manage and master your emotions. Because when we sit, there's a time and place, right? There's a time and place to be sad. There's a time and place to grieve. There's a time and place to sit in that and allow that emotion. We'll talk about that in a second. But there is also a time where you have to let go because you can't hold on to what is behind you. Think about that. If you're holding on to something and you're looking back and maybe it's really, really heavy and you're holding that and you're trying to go forward, how fast do you think you're going to go? How efficiently do you think you're going to go? If you're always looking back, maybe it's not just heavy, but maybe you keep looking back and you're like, oh, I really wish I was there. What do you think you're going to miss in the here and now? What do you think you're going to miss along the way? How many times do you think you're going to trip and stumble and fall? That's bound to happen anyway because that's life. But do you think the odds are that it's going to happen a lot more if you're looking back and holding on and allowing that? Negative emotion is super heavy to us physically, emotionally. It'll show up in our bodies as pain, fatigue, discomfort, all the things. So it's not that the negative emotion does not exist. It's that when you get the opportunities to work through negative emotion and you choose to, then you get to become a new level of strength in this aspect of life, in the mental foundation that, like I said, the stronger you are mentally and emotionally, the stronger you'll be for yourself, for your family, for whatever your greatest purpose is and the people that you are meant to serve and help. And when we do that on a societal level, things change, right? So when you feel stuck and you feel overwhelmed, though, and I've had those moments in the past, and I've had the opportunity to grow through them, and therefore I can go through them faster now than I could have 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I hope that makes sense, right? So one of the things that I want you to start with, because that is all of a lot to take in, and it is too much. One of the things that is important to think about when it comes to goals or any kind of growth is a lot of times trying to you can't get from A to Z, right? And expecting someone else or yourself to go from a place where just emotionally you're very impacted and very affected and it takes you down and physically and you're struggling with depression and it is that feeling of like you can't get out of bed or you like find yourself at the bottom of the shower crying because you don't know how to get up. I've been there, right? You can't go from that in whatever circumstances that you're struggling with at the time. You can't go from that to being your response straight to, oh my gosh, this major shift in my life is happening and I'm going to choose a positive perspective and I'm going to choose because I know the best is always in front of me, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't want anyone to think that that is a candy-coated response. I want you to know that I have fought to be able to say that and truly believe it and truly live by it, right? And it's because I've had so many opportunities in between. So you do not expect of yourself to be able to go from that stage where it's heavy. Like I've been there too. Please know that and understand that in different situations, in different seasons, right? Where it's heavy and you just don't want to get up or you don't feel motivated and you just don't, right? And you don't know how you're going to take that next step. It's overwhelming and it can be suffocating. So you can't expect yourself to go from there to there. So how do you start to bridge the gap? One is recognizing where you're at and not running away from it. The longer I spent in my personal journey medicating what was really going on versus doing the work, and my version of medicating has been different over the years, but most recently, as of like the last decade, it was food, right? And I finally had that final breakthrough. And that's truly what it is, whether it's stress or whether it's shopping or truly being depressed and staying at home. I don't mean truly being depressed, but I mean you're not even active because you're just crippled at home. Whatever that case may be, whatever that vice is, whatever that go-to is, the more you go to that vice, the less likely you are to be able to grow in strength, because we only grow in mental, emotional strength when we dig in and deal with what's really going on. So where do you start? Where you start, in my opinion, what has worked well for me is just start with something simple. If you're in this state of feeling overwhelmed, anxious, don't know what to do next, can't even think about getting to that stage where you're like, yay, I'm so excited that my kids are homeschooled today, right? whatever. Start with a gratitude, right? If you know you are, and that's in a whole nother thing, is like, don't condemn yourself for how you're feeling, just recognize it. A lot of times when we're high achievers, if we have negative emotion or we feel like it's impacting our actions and we know that and we recognize it, but we still feel like there's nothing we can do about it, we beat ourselves up. That's not gonna help. Beating yourself up, hating yourself for where you're at, or telling yourself like you should be better than this, those types of thoughts and emotions serve you no good. So let them go, refuse every time you hear it. Hey, Alita. Hi, Abad. I just want to say hi real quick for the people that I see popping up. Gwendolyn, you can comment below if you're on. When you see those feelings popping up, you honor them, you recognize them. Don't beat yourself up. You are a human being having a human experience, and emotion is to be expected. So just start to kind of crawl out when you're in that very, very pit. And then I'm going to keep this brief. I'm going to go through kind of 5 things, and then maybe I'll do another video with this. Obviously, I've gotten into a much longer, I get in this video and I get into, like, I just get so caught up, right? Because so passionate about all of these topics. But the 5 things that I want to at least start with you today is when you're in that season of like overwhelming negative emotion, you're angry, you're fearful, you're upset. Instead of trying to get rid of that, add in gratitude. You can't be grateful and pissed off at the same time, right? You can't be grateful and crippled by fear at the same time. So start with something simple like adding in gratitude, and don't try to do all of these at once necessarily either. Maybe take a few days of, we all have time. And this is the most important thing you could do for yourself, but it doesn't require a lot of time. If you are crazy busy running around all through the day and you just know that you won't be mindful of it, you could try setting an alarm for a certain period of day to stop, to breathe, to catch a breath, to recognize what is going on and be present, and flip to gratitude then. Hey, Eve. And flip to gratitude then. And just even if you start with 5 minutes, think about what you're truly grateful for. Long term, I love the idea, and I work this into my process and routine is, at the end of the day, you list what you're grateful for. If you're a high achiever, this is a side note, bonus tip. If you're a high achiever, what you're grateful for, but also what you actually got done and executed that day. Because high achievers, we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we've done, and we're constantly beating ourselves up, and that ultimately weighs down and adds to that negative emotion too. So gratitude, just start with that. Take 5 minutes a day at some point during the day. It really is helpful if you can do it at the end of the day before you go to bed, because I don't have time to go into it, but there's lots of research and studies that show that what you focus on before you go to bed is going to impact your sleep and how you feel when you wake up. And I'm trying to stay on point, so I can't go into that right now. The second thing I already talked about a little bit is start to acknowledge the emotion. But as you're acknowledging the emotion, you're like, I feel really anxious. Why do I feel anxious? Is that true? Like, there's a whole series of questions that you can go down to really kind of, again, become a student of your own mind, your own body, to start becoming more of what you want to be. Live a more joyful, full life, more of it. Like, when you are able to understand your full focus and your full purpose, when you're able to experience your best life, when you're able to experience the best version of you and enjoy the best version of you, then you get to give the best version of you, right? But you can only give it if you have it. So start with gratitude. Hello, Miss Kim. Soul sister. Acknowledge the emotion when it starts to rise up, or check, like maybe you're really in a tunnel and whirlwind right now and you need to set a reminder to check a couple times a day. I promise you it'll be the best work you've ever done for yourself. You acknowledge the emotion, even if it's sadness, even if it's heaviness, and ask you those questions like, is it true? What is going on? Do I want to move on from this? Because, for example, in a past life, I will say, it seems like long time ago, many years ago, I was really, really angry at an individual. Like, I cannot express that enough. And one of the things that I learned from Joyce Meyer was like, being angry is like taking poison and expecting the other person to get sick from it. And now I've heard it from so many people since then, but I truly believe she was one of the original people that said that. Hi, Jill. And so holding on to, whether it be anger at somebody or circumstance or a situation, like it's okay to feel that emotion. Don't shame yourself for feel it, but recognize it, catch it, and say, is that really doing me any good? And it's not going to just go away overnight, right? Some people will be like, well, I don't know how to get rid of it. I understand that. That's why you got to tie all these things together. Start with, like I said, the heart of gratitude, right? And then when you recognize that anger, you're going to recognize it and then just take a second and ask yourself, why am I angry? Is it really doing me good? Like it might be totally valid, but is it helping you to be angry? Is it going to move you forward? Or can you see and maybe entertain the idea that the anger is part of that weight that is holding you back? That is like you're back there looking there, and as long as you're looking behind you, you're missing out on what is happening right in front of you. You're missing out on the moments with your kids or the impact that you could be having around you or whatever the case may be. I am not saying that it's easy. I'm saying you work on these things, and the more you work on them and the more intentional you get, the better you'll become. So first is the gratitude. Second is recognizing the emotion. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I don't forget. The third, which was a critical thing for me and still is to this day, but especially, just amazing, is the thought, the negativity, the fear, the anger, whatever it is, anything negative does not drive you forward. So those are the things that we need to work on replacing. And I talked about this the other day a little bit in terms of like even just our own stinking thinking and how we talk to ourselves. We have to rewire by replacing. We have to first recognize and then second replace it. So you be mindful of what you expose yourself to in the news, in social media, all that stuff adds up. Limit your exposure, protect your headspace, but then also get intentional about what you are putting in, right? Get intentional about the words that you say to yourself. For me, when I originally started to like learn this process or teach myself this process back then, this didn't exist, right? But almost 20 years ago, I'm sure that this was all God-led at the time. Is that for me, it was a lot of scriptures and the I am statements. Now that's become a thing, but it's become a thing for a reason. It seems like some way, somehow, on a universal level, we've all realized the importance of those words. The words you say behind I am are so critically important. Is it everything and anything? Is it everything and the end all be all? No. But it is one more thing that you can do to start replacing those feelings, right? And even if it's like, you're angry and you don't yet believe that you're peaceful, right? It's you choose peace. Joyce Meyer also talks about, and this is in scripture as well, like the man at the well, right? And this was honestly a gut punch for me at one point with one of the things that I was dealing with, that I was continually struggling with as well. And that was this question, like, do you even want to get well, right? Because sometimes our anger, our frustration, our whatever it is, our battle, right, is serving us on some level, so we hold on to it, right? For me, something that I battled with the eating disorder, that was my way of numbing. And like, it's totally, now that I'm almost embarrassed to say it out loud, but I know there's somebody else that feels the same way. But it's like, it was almost it was my way of numbing out. It was the one thing that I could control. Like I would binge eat and then throw it up. Sorry, no, it's disgusting, but that's the truth. And that for me at the time felt like control. But what was really happening is I wasn't dealing with whatever it was that was bothering me. I didn't learn how to better manage my emotion and stress and anxiety and all the things, right? So I struggled with it for so long until that concept of, do you even want to get well, right? Gut punch. But ask yourself, are you ready to let go of the anger? Are you done with it? Are you ready to get rid of the stress and the anxiety? Are you done with it? Because once you choose to be done with it, there's still a lot of work to do, sister. But you choose, and then you choose on a daily basis. And you choose to recognize, I feel it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to replace that with this emotion. I'm going to replace it with this focus. Because reality is, whoa, it's hot in here. I'm running out of breath. Reality is that it is all thoughts. Energy. Got it. Here we go. Reality is it is all thoughts. It's all starting in our thoughts, and it's all based on what we are choosing to focus on. I know that's a gut punch, sister, but it is what we are choosing to focus on. And I know it is so hard to choose our focus so often, but it's just one step at a time, right? There's no judgment, no criticisms. Just take one step. Just recognizing that that is a challenge and choosing your focus over and over again, no matter how many times you need to do it. And then fourth thing, real quick, I really got to wrap this up because I got to be somewhere too. Fourth is get help. A lot of times you do need somebody else to lean into, and that's not always a friend. Hey, Corey. A lot of times that is a coach, a counselor, maybe it's a doctor, but do not isolate. Do not, like, girlfriends are great for buddies, but when you've got to dig in and do the work, like, you need really good, trusted girlfriends, and not one friend is going to be like the soul, isn't going to serve every aspect of your life, right? You guys will complement each other's in different aspects of life. You don't need a lot of friends, but you need a couple, like, true to the grit, that will tell you the truth, that will speak love, that can love you as you are for who you are. But you also sometimes need to have a coach, accountability, a counselor, somebody that's going to dig in and help you do the work. And it's got to be somebody that has had experience, in my opinion, in being able to do this work and get stronger in the process, right? And yeah, of course, I love that I get to focus on that now. And then the fifth thing is like, when it seems overwhelming, just break it down. Do the next thing, right? Start with the simple thing of the gratitude. Just be like, okay, I'm going to get intentional about just focusing on gratitude for the next week, 2 weeks, right? Just focus on, some of you know logically what helps you feel better in a day. You know logically what helps you get to that next step. You're welcome, Alita. You know logically what it is that you need to do, and you don't feel like it. Tell your feelings to take a step back, show up, and get it done. When you take action every time you do, especially on the days you don't feel like it, you build your self-confidence. You build your energy. I promise it'll be worth it. All right, love you guys so much. I have to run, but if you have any questions or need anything, you can either post a comment below. If you watch this live, please type in live. If you watch the replay, please type in replay. If you need anything, you can either comment below or message me. Love you guys. Bye.